Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to support the formation of this ad hoc committee to look into the issues of farmers. Madam Speaker, on the onset, I want to congratulate the current CS for Agriculture and the PS for Agriculture, Kiunjuri and Lesiambe, for having saved this country another wheat crisis. Madam Speaker, customs is something which is very important, and it is important for us to understand. I see that in this, the mandate of this ad hoc committee, which is to be established, is to look at three important things. Number one, why farmers have delivered their produce to NCPB, and have not been paid to date. Madam Speaker, this is a matter that I would like to address first so that we can go point by point as I make my argument. Madam Speaker, I hope that this committee, when investigating this matter, would be thinking about a permanent solution that promotes devolution. Madam Speaker, there is no reason as to why counties or other farmers in Kenya should be sending their produce to a centralized position, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think it is about time that we come up with proper legislations, we come up with programs that encourages farmers to form cooperatives so that they can be able to store their own products, set up their own prices, to be able to commit and be able to ensure that this country in general can be secure in terms of food security. Madam Speaker, when you travel across the world, Brazil is a very good example. Farmers there come together. They form cooperatives. With this cooperative, they bring all their produce together. With this cooperative, Madam Speaker, they are able to set up their own silos, storage, drying of their produce. Why is it that this year, 2018 in Kenya, about 6 years after devolution, we are still talking about a centralized organization called National Cereals and Produce Board? Madam Speaker, what we should be talking about now is having farmers in Narok with their own private, and I emphasize on the word private, storage facilities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the big problem we have in terms of big government, when you look at worldwide, big government tend to be bureaucratic, inefficient, intrusive, and in most cases, corrupt. This issue of farmers not being paid is because of this notion of big government. Let us now try to advance into small government. Small government, Madam Speaker, are very efficient, Madam Speaker. Most of them are believed to be flexible. And this is why we are in this house, Madam Speaker. As a Senate, we should be working towards ensuring that we have full devolution. There's no reason as to why our farmers should be subjected to such conditions where a few people in Nairobi decide when the farmers will be paid or how much they'll be paid. Madam Speaker, the biggest problem we have in this country is that sometimes, even when we look into things, we don't look at the consequences. Madam Speaker, anything that has to come that deals with duty is not something which the current CS of Treasury can be able to come out and just issue a gazette notice. This is something which is controlled by the custom union. This is a duty. For him to be able to waive this duty, he has got to meet with his other two counterparts, or three, in the East African community to decide that, I think there are four, to decide that it is now high time that we have a crisis. Madam Speaker, when we're investigating this matter, and I hope that the committee will be able to look at the gazette notice, the first gazette notice, which is only to inform the general public, Madam Speaker. And this gazette notice, which is actually, it's an East African community custom under the Custom Management Act. It is not under the Kenyan Act. It is under the East Africa Customs Act. And key issues here are very clear. The custom notice is clear. It says it is to notify for general information. And then it continues and it says, of the public that pursuant to the power conferred to the Cabinet Secretary under Section 114.2 of the East African Community Custom Management Act 2004, in consequence of the declaration by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces of the national disaster through Executive Order Number 1 of 2017, duty shall be waived on certain products. And Madam Speaker, during that time, the companies which were allowed to import duty-free maize into this country are listed in this Gazette notice. They were given 373,000 metric tons. The Act is also very clear. It set out the period where this duty-free shall take place. When you look at the Act, it says that it should be in 6 months, and there are certain conditions which will have to be met. So, Madam Speaker, when we complain, because I'm looking at the second task, which is the quantity of duty-free maize imported into the country during the duty-free window, which was to end in October 2017, and why the period was extended. Madam Speaker, to answer the reason why the period was extended, it is clear in the Act. The Act says it can be extended for up to 12 months. So what we need to look at is looking at this issue of the strategic grain reserve. Did we have enough maize in the country? Did these people import the 373,000 metric tons of maize, both white and yellow, during the stipulated period of 3 months or 6 months before it was extended? Those are things that will be able to guide this House in knowing how to actually even advise the current CS in Treasury when he's meeting with his counterparts to be able to agree on looking at these matters case by case, because that is what the Act says, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think this committee will be able, and I hope that it will extend its mandate to looking at the entire grain reserve in the country. How much do we need as Narok County to consume? How much does Trans Nzoia need? How much does Nairobi need? How much does Mombasa need? So that when the current CS is meeting with his counterparts, so that the commissioner can be able to have this Gazette notice issued, he can be able to say, in Kenya, our farmers can produce X amount. The only amount that we can allow is the importation of X amount. Madam Speaker, when I look at the list of companies that have been allowed to import maize duty-free, you will see the variation in terms of the quantity that they are given to import. Some are given 36,000, some are even given 1,000 metric tons. So you've got to look at, in details, why were they given this time? And then, Madam Speaker, one thing which is very, very crucial is that we have to understand, like from the beginning I said, I want to congratulate CS Kiunjuri and PS Lesiambe for the action they took. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, last week, Madam Speaker, the farmers of Narok and Eldoret who are producing wheat were concerned about a similar Gazette notice that had been published by the East African Community, which gave a window for the millers to import tax-free wheat into this country. Those millers had been allowed to import up to 30 million metric tons of wheat into this country. When they were allowed, the farmers started harvesting. The millers started saying, I'm sorry, we are just importing, it is too expensive for us to buy. But the CS Kiunjuri and Lesiambe met with the farmers, met with the millers and myself, and we worked together, and we first of all set those conditions that the millers must first mop out all the local wheat. And then after they mop out all the local wheat from the farmers who are harvesting now, they can then go to the extent of now importing. These are the things that this committee ought to look into. Because when this window is open, sometime a farmer in Wasingishu has harvested. He has delivered his corn or maize to NCPB. He has not been paid. Because the miller, at that time, is importing these maize duty-free. So, Madam Speaker, as we look into these matters, this committee cannot restrict itself in looking only on the crisis of maize. They have got to interrogate the cabinet secretary in charge of treasury so that they can be able to agree. First of all, when the CS, because I heard that the CS extended the Gazette notice, when he did that, although the Act provides for him to be able to do that.
Senator, please wind up. There was a
Madam
gentleman's
Speaker,
agreement here.
I'm still looking at my clock, and I'm seeing that I have a minute, so I'll finish it with when it says red, Madam Speaker.
I know he came in and has extended time.
I'm happy to hear that, Madam Speaker. In summary, for me to finalize, I think it is important that when we are looking at that extension, to ask basic question as to whether the CS, if indeed he extended on its own discretion, whether he sought leave from his other counterparts. So that when we are actually questioning, we cannot be questioning things outside the law. We can be able to then come up with suggestions. If we have to amend the East African Customs Act, Community Customs Management Act, then this committee can be able to guide us in that direction. So, Madam Speaker, since I can see other people want to talk on this matter, I just want to end by saying, in terms of the issues of the challenges which are faced by the farmers, what I would encourage this committee to look into is to find a way that they can advise Treasury. Since this House has been reduced to a rubber stamp, when it comes to issues of division, or rather the equitable share, we can see whether we can bring the farmers together, give them grants, give them loans for them to form their own private cooperatives. And then, on top of that, see how these farmers can work with their local governments or county government to set up clear databases. And also improve on the production. Because we see other countries around the world, Madam Speaker, that produce a lot of maize. Why is it that in this country we cannot? With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support.